Before the modern world, before the roar of factories and the glow of stock market tickers, the world of money was a world of shadows and steel. For centuries, kings and empires saw wealth not as something that could be created, but as something to be taken. A finite treasure of gold and silver locked away in royal vaults. This was the age of mercantilism, an age where a nation's prosperity was measured by the hoard in its treasury. The goal was simple: export as much as possible, import as little as possible, and watch the gold pile up. It was a zero-sum game. For one kingdom to win, another had to lose. Trade was not a dance of mutual benefit. A quiet, constant war fought with tariffs, monopolies, and cannons. The individual was merely a pawn in the great game of nations, their economic fate tied to the whims of kings and state-chartered companies. The world was trapped in a mindset of scarcity. But then, from a small, windy coastal town in Scotland, a quiet observer, a moral philosopher, would emerge to challenge this entire worldview. He would look at the chaos of the market and see an underlying, elegant order. His name was Adam Smith, and his ideas would not just change economics, they would change the world. To understand the man, we must first go to his birthplace, Kirkcaldy, Scotland, in 1723, a town of merchants, sailors, and craftsmen. Smith grew up surrounded by the hum of everyday commerce. He saw the baker, the butcher, and the brewer, not as cogs in a royal machine, but as individuals, each working to better their own lives. This simple, early observation would become the bedrock of his philosophy. He was a brilliant but unassuming scholar. He studied at the University of Glasgow, and then at Oxford. But it was his work as a professor of moral philosophy that first defined him. Long before he wrote about wealth, he wrote about human nature. In his first great book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, he explored how empathy, conscience, and our desire for the approval of others create a functioning moral society. He believed that we are not inherently selfish creatures, but social beings who care deeply about how we are perceived by our peers. This understanding of human morality is the essential, often forgotten, key to his later economic work. His great journey of discovery took a pivotal turn when he traveled through France, meeting with the great thinkers of the Enlightenment. It was here that he began to synthesize his ideas about morality with the workings of the economy. He returned to Scotland and spent the next decade in deep contemplation, meticulously crafting the book that would become his legacy. And at the heart of that book lies a simple yet profoundly powerful observation, an idea born from a visit to a humble pin factory. Smith observed that a single untrained worker, performing all the steps required to make a pin, could perhaps make only one pin a day. But if the work was divided, one man draws the wire, another straightens it, a third cuts it, a fourth points it, and so on, 10 workers could produce an astonishing 48,000 pins in a single day. This was not just a small improvement. It was a quantum leap in productivity. He called it the division of labor. And in this simple pin factory, Smith saw the engine of a new world. He realized that wealth was not a fixed pile of gold to be fought over. It was something that could be created, expanded, and grown, seemingly out of thin air, through the power of human cooperation and specialization. So, if every individual is simply working to better their own lives, who is looking out for the good of society? How does this self-interest lead to order instead of chaos? This question led Adam Smith to his most famous and most misunderstood metaphor, the invisible hand. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. This famous line is not a celebration of selfishness. It's a profound observation about human nature and incentives. The baker wants to earn a living, so he must produce excellent bread at a fair price. If he doesn't, his customers will simply go to the baker across the street. The invisible hand is the term Smith used to describe these unseen market forces, competition, supply, and demand, that channel individual self-interest towards socially desirable ends. It's not a magical or mystical force. It is the spontaneous order that emerges when free people are allowed to interact and trade with one another under a system of law and justice. In pursuing his own gain, the individual is frequently led by an invisible hand to promote an end which was no part of his intention. Society's needs are met, not because of a grand central plan, but as an unintended, beautiful consequence of individual liberty. But Smith was no fool. He knew this mechanism only worked under specific conditions. The invisible hand requires competition to function. Without it, self-interest becomes simple greed and exploitation. This is why Smith spent much of his work fiercely warning against the dangers of monopolies, state-granted privileges, and conspiracies by businessmen to fix prices. The invisible hand was a force for the people, not for the powerful. In 1776, a year of revolution that saw the birth of the United States of America, Adam Smith published his own Declaration of Independence, an economic one. After a decade of solitary work, his magnum opus was complete, an inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. It was more than a book. It was a 5-volume, 900-page intellectual earthquake. It systematically dismantled centuries of mercantilist thinking. Its central argument was revolutionary. A nation's wealth is not its stockpile of gold, but the total of its production and commerce, what we today would call its gross domestic product. And the key to increasing this wealth, he argued, was freedom. The freedom of individuals to pursue their own occupations, the freedom of merchants to trade across borders, and the freedom of markets to set prices. The wealth of nations was a blueprint for a new world, a world of dynamic growth, competition, and prosperity, built upon the foundation of individual liberty. But it is a great mistake to believe Adam Smith was an advocate for no government at all. He is often painted as the father of pure, unregulated, laissez-faire capitalism. But his vision was far more nuanced. He saw a critical and powerful role for the state, which he outlined as 3 fundamental duties of the sovereign. First, the duty of protecting society from violence and invasion from other countries, the need for a strong national defense. Second, the duty of protecting every member of society from the injustice or oppression of every other member. The need for a reliable and impartial system of justice, police, and rule of law. And third, the duty of erecting and maintaining certain public works and public institutions, which could never be in the interest of any individual to erect and maintain, because the profit could never repay the expense. This includes things like roads, bridges, canals, and, importantly, offering basic education to the populace. For Smith, a functioning free market could not exist in a state of anarchy. It required a strong but limited government to act as the referee, ensuring a level playing field for everyone. And so, we see the true, nuanced vision of Adam Smith. Not a world of pure, unregulated chaos, but a world of free individuals making their own choices, supported by a strong and effective but limited government that provides defense, justice, and essential public works. A system designed to create universal opulence for the many, not just the few. If this video brought you some clarity on the real ideas behind one of history's greatest thinkers, the best way to let us know is by hitting that like button. It's a small click for you, but it truly helps the channel reach more people who are curious about these foundational topics. But the discussion doesn't end here. We want to hear from you. After learning about his ideas on the role of the state, what is one public service you believe is absolutely essential for a healthy economy today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's build a great discussion. And if you know someone who might think Adam Smith was only about greed, or who would simply enjoy this journey into the history of ideas, please consider sharing this video with them. Spreading clarity is a powerful thing. Finally, to continue your journey into the great ideas of finance and economics, make sure you are subscribed to the Clarity Ledger and have the notification bell turned on so you don't miss our next video. Thanks for watching.